A 40-foot sloop changes hands on the south shore of Lake Ontario for $82,000. The buyer pays cash. The Marina shakes his hand, the broker smiles, and the survey is clean. The figure on the check is everything the buyer believes he owes. What nobody mentions, because nobody is required to, is that the Marina and the broker share a referral arrangement, that the survey was conducted by a firm the broker recommended and has referred to 11 times in the previous 2 years, and that the boat's true annual carrying cost, not the purchase price, not a financing charge, but the unavoidable recurring cost of simply keeping it in the water in Canada, will run somewhere between $14,000 and $22,000 in the first year alone. The $82,000, that large and serious number, is not the expensive part. The expensive part starts the morning after the wire clears. This is a system. It has 6 moving parts, and each one is calibrated to extract revenue from someone who does not yet understand the arithmetic. The buyer believes he is acquiring an asset and a lifestyle. What he is actually acquiring is a recurring liability dressed in teak and stainless steel. The question that governs everything that follows is simple. Who actually captures the money in a Liveaboard arrangement in Canada, and is it ever the person who bought the boat? That question cannot be answered honestly until every layer is open. But before the ledger, the dream, because the dream is real and it earns its time here. There is a particular quality of light on a Canadian anchorage at 7 in the morning in late July. The water is grey-green and completely flat, and the boat moves in a slow, almost imperceptible rhythm that has no analogue on land. The cabin smells like teak oil and coffee. The V-berth holds body heat through the night, and when the hatch opens, the air comes in cold and clean off the lake. People who live aboard in Canada describe it in almost identical language. The word freedom arrives before any other word. They use terms like intentional living and reduced footprint, and they are not wrong to use them. The culture that surrounds Liveaboard life is genuinely attractive. The dock is a community. People share tools and weather information and cooking advice. The social hierarchy is organized around seamanship rather than income, and the result is a particular kind of equality that is hard to find on land. The clothing is functional and considered. The vocabulary is technical and specific. To know what a chain plate is, to read a barometer, to back a boat into a slip in a crosswind, these competencies confer a real identity, and the identity is one that a significant number of people find worth pursuing. The space is small, 35 to 45 feet is typical for a Liveaboard, but it is entirely yours, and the view from the companionway changes every time the wind changes. The brokers and marinas understand all of this. They sell the dream fluently, and they are not lying when they do. The boat is beautiful. The life is possible. The numbers are for later. Now, the ledger opens. 3 benchmarks stated plainly, with the arithmetic done in front of you. First, marina moorage in a Canadian freshwater port. The Great Lakes, the St. Lawrence Corridor, the British Columbia coast, runs roughly $800 to $1,800 per month for a slip that accommodates a Liveaboard. Take the midpoint, $1,200. Annually, that is $14,400. On the $82,000 boat from the first paragraph, moorage alone in year 1 represents roughly 17 cents of every dollar spent on the purchase, recurring every year, without end, whether the boat moves or not. Second, insurance for a vessel rated for Liveaboard occupancy in Canada runs between 1.5% and 3% of the hull's insured value annually. On an $80,000 insured hull, that range is $1,200 to $2,400 per year. The higher end applies to hulls over a certain age, to boats kept in tidal waters with ice exposure, and to any owner without a documented sailing resume. Most first-time Liveaboards pay the higher end, call it $2,000. Add that to the moorage, $16,400 spent before a single maintenance item is touched. Third, maintenance on a production fiberglass boat of average age, and the average Liveaboard hull in Canada is between 15 and 30 years old, consumes between 1% and 2% of replacement value per year under ordinary conditions, and between 3% and 5% in any year that involves haul-out, anti-fouling, rigging inspection, or mechanical work. Replacement value is not purchase price. Replacement value for a comparable vessel in current market conditions is often 40 to 60% higher than what was paid. Apply 2% to a replacement value of $120,000, $2,400 in a quiet year. Apply 4% in a haul-out year, $4,800. The haul-out itself, the travel lift fee, the yard storage, the bottom paint and labor. That alone runs $1,500 to $3,000 in most Canadian yards, and Canadian boats must haul everyone to 2 years in freshwater and every year in saltwater to remain insurable and structurally sound. Bundle the 3 benchmarks into one sentence: moorage, insurance, and maintenance on a typical Canadian liveaboard, combined to a realistic floor of $18,000 to $26,000 annually, before utilities, before crew costs, before any equipment replacement, and before the depreciation the owner never writes a check for but absorbs every day. These are not catastrophic scenarios. These are the ordinary, expected numbers in a country with a 7-month sailing season and winters that attack gel coat, seacocks, and standing rigging simultaneously. The boat is sold as freedom. What is owed is a mortgage without equity accumulation. This calculation channels money upward in a remarkably consistent direction. The marina captures the moorage, the insurer captures the premium, the yard captures the haul-out. None of these entities share in the lifestyle. They share only in the cost. The buyer enjoys the anchorage at dawn. The marina enjoys the pre-authorized monthly payment regardless of weather. This content is published here regularly for anyone who finds arithmetic more useful than sales language, worth following if that describes you. But the architecture goes deeper than recurring fees. Every reasonable person who investigates liveaboard costs in Canada eventually arrives at the same 4 escape routes. Each one is real. Each one fails under conditions that are, upon examination, ordinary. The first escape route is anchoring out, avoiding the marina entirely by living on a hook in a public anchorage, paying nothing for the slip. The advocates of this approach are correct that it eliminates moorage. What it does not eliminate is the need for a dinghy and outboard to reach shore, which adds $500 to $1,500 annually in fuel and maintenance. It does not eliminate the insurance requirement, which many Canadian insurers apply regardless of where the vessel is kept. It does not eliminate haul-out, which requires a yard regardless of where the boat otherwise lives. And in Canada specifically, the number of anchorages that are legally available for extended occupation within practical range of employment, services, and medical care is sharply limited by municipal bylaws, provincial regulations, and Transport Canada guidance on extended anchorage in navigable waters. The liveaboard who anchors out in Greater Vancouver or Toronto Harbour is not saving $1,200 a month. He is accumulating regulatory exposure and dinghy fuel costs while sacrificing shore power in a climate where shore power is not a luxury in October. The math closes. The dream narrows, but the costs do not. The second escape route is buying older and buying cheap. Acquiring a vessel in the $20,000 to $40,000 range rather than the $80,000 range, on the theory that a lower purchase price reduces the total liability. This is arithmetically true for exactly one figure, the purchase check. It is arithmetically false for every other line item. Insurance on an older hull is not lower. It is typically higher, because age correlates with survey findings, and survey findings correlate with exclusions and elevated premiums. Maintenance on an older hull is not lower, it is substantially higher, because systems that were last replaced 15 years ago are due for replacement now. And the labor rate at a Canadian marine yard runs between $70 and $120 per hour, regardless of hull age. A $30,000 boat with a compromised standing rig, an aging diesel, and a deck that requires wreckering does not cost $30,000. It costs $30,000, plus whatever the survey missed, plus the yard time to address it, plus the insurance loading that follows from the survey's findings. The cheap boat is the expensive boat with the purchase price split across time. The dream is real. The discount is not. The third escape route is seasonal. Owning the boat but not living aboard full-time, treating it as a summer residence and wintering ashore, on the theory that part-time occupancy halves the cost. What it actually halves is the moorage. in climates where the Marina offers winter storage at a rate below summer moorage. In Ontario, winter storage in a covered facility runs between $25 and $50 per foot for the season. On a 40-foot boat, $1,000 to $2,000. The insurance does not halve, the maintenance does not halve, the engine, the rigging and the hull age on a calendar, not an occupancy schedule. 40% of Liveaboard costs in Canada are fixed costs that survive every attempt at economizing. Every door into this lifestyle leads to the same building. 3 people, 3 doors, 1 destination. The first person borrows to buy. He finances 60% of an $85,000 hull at a marine lending rate between 7 and 11% over a 10 to 15-year term, because marine financing in Canada is not a mortgage and does not carry mortgage rates. At 9% on $50,000 over 12 years, the monthly payment is roughly $500, and the total interest across the loan term is approximately $23,000. Add this to the moorage, insurance and maintenance already established. His total monthly cost in year 1 is between $2,200 and $3,200 for an asset that depreciates. A boat of average age in the Canadian market loses between 5 and 8% of its market value annually in a flat market and more in a buyer's market, which is the ordinary condition for production sailboats over 20 years old. He is paying a premium on a declining asset and calling it rent. The second person is the clever one. He buys with cash, avoids the interest, reads the surveys carefully, negotiates the slip rate down by $100, and DIYs the bottom paint. He saves, conservatively, $4,000 to $6,000 per year over the financed buyer. His annual carrying cost is $14,000 to $20,000 rather than $18,000 to $26,000. He is still spending between $1,200 and $1,700 every month to live in a 35-foot space with 1 working burner and a holding tank he pumps himself. The strategy worked. The destination is the same. The third person is the cash buyer from the first paragraph, the one who believed the check was the cost. He paid nothing to borrow. He owed nothing to a lender. He is, by the end of year 3, $8,000 to $12,000 into deferred maintenance that the survey either missed or flagged as advisory, plus 1 haul-out he did not budget for, plus a diesel that required an injector rebuild and a raw water impeller that failed at the worst possible moment. His equity position has declined. His monthly cost, averaged across 3 years, is between $1,600 and $2,200. He arrived through the cleanest door. He is standing in the same room. The Marina gets paid first, then the insurer, then the yard, then the fuel dock, the chandlery, the rigger, and the mechanic who diagnoses over the phone before he quotes in person. The owner absorbs whatever is left, which is the risk, the labor, and the depreciation. This is not an accident. It is the architecture. The slip agreement, the insurance policy, the survey process, the financing structure. These documents were written by entities that profit from the arrangement, regardless of whether the owner profits, and they operate in plain sight, available for anyone to read, which almost no one does before signing. A boat is not a home in the legal or financial sense that protects a home buyer. It is a vessel, subject to admiralty principles, held by a lender or fully exposed to liability, without the protections that surround real property. It is sold as a life, priced as a purchase, and structured as a recurring transfer of wealth from the person living on the water to the people administering the infrastructure around him. The only real advantage available in this market is understanding the structure before committing to it. The map that brought you here was drawn by people who profit from the route, and now you know where it leads.